Archbishop of San Francisco, Salvatore Cordileone, is here to weigh in on Nancy Pelosi's recent comments regarding communion, and he reveals his new initiative honoring Our Lady of Guadalupe. And Pope Francis creates 21 new cardinals this week. How will these men shape the next conclave, the papal posse? Father Gerald Murray and Robert Royal are here with analysis. The National Catholic Register's Ed Pentin tells us about his new project highlighting the cardinal candidates who could become the next pope. And foreign policy expert Dr. Walid Phares tells us about the chaos in Syria and what it could mean to Christians there. And finally, Dr. David Jeremiah tells us about his new film about the birth of Jesus, Why the Nativity, the world over, begins right now.
Now, Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over. We have a great show for you. If you'd like to comment, send me an X post. I'm at Raymond Arroyo or at Real Raymond Arroyo on Instagram. Lots to cover. Let's get to it. December 12th is the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and our first guest tonight is here to share a new multi-year initiative to honor her in the lead-up to the 500th anniversary of her appearance to St. Juan Diego. Here to tell us about it and to weigh in on a recent controversy surrounding comments by Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi is Archbishop of San Francisco, Salvatore Cordileone. Archbishop, thank you for being here. Comments by a prominent member of your flock, Congresswoman Pelosi, are causing a bit of a stir. In 2022, you put Pelosi on notice. You said she should no longer receive communion and wouldn't be allowed to do so in your archdiocese due to her very public support of abortion. When asked about the prohibition, she told the National Catholic Reporter this: "I received communion anyway. That's his problem, not mine. My Catholic faith is Christ my Savior. It has nothing to do with the bishops." Archbishop, your reaction first to those comments, and she basically is saying she doesn't need a bishop instructing her. What would you say?
That's certainly not our Catholic understanding. Christ chose the apostles and entrusted with them the teaching authority of the church, and the apostles hand that down to their successors. We are a communion, that's true, but the bishops are the ones charged with safeguarding that communion and safeguarding the teaching of the church. So we have an understanding of the church sharing in a communion, and it's not purely an individualistic relationship with Jesus Christ.
Pelosi intimates in that interview that this case and your instruction is under review by Rome. Do you know anything about that?
I can say that there's been correspondence with the Vatican, but I was instructed that it's to be kept strictly confidential.
Okay, so it is under review. She did appeal it. Explain to those, Archbishop, who say you're being too hard here. Why do this? Why deny her communion? It's a sacrament for all, they say. You would say what?
Pope Francis issued a revised Book 6 of the Code of Canon Law, which has to do with the penal law, so sanctions and so forth. What I did, declaring she's not to be admitted to communion, is not part of that. I want to clarify that, first of all. I bring that up because he mentioned reasons for prohibiting someone from receiving the sacraments, which would be to repair any scandal and to move the offending party to conversion. It's ultimately all about the salvation of souls, and also for the sake of justice. So these were the motives. As someone who advocates the killing of innocent human life and the government to sanction it, we're talking, this is a very extreme situation, right? All the way up to the day of birth. Yeah. So it's creating tremendous scandal in the technical sense of confusing people, misleading people, and it's a huge injustice. It's a horrible, horrible injustice. And it puts her own soul in jeopardy. The ultimate motivation is the salvation of her soul, which is why I've issued that notification.
Yeah, and you also issued a statement recently asking people to pray for former Speaker Pelosi. I mean, which you've done all along, and I know you've attempted to establish a dialogue with her, and she's never met with you. So, it's very hard, I think, from the outside. People see this and they go, "Oh, look, the Archbishop's punishing Nancy Pelosi." No, it's really, this is an act of mercy to put her on notice that she's moving in a direction that is imperiling her soul and imperiling the souls of others.
Yes, I want to clarify. She has met with me in the past, but since the Dobbs decision and her announcement to work to codify this in the federal law all 9 months up to the day of birth, this is when it became truly urgent, and she has not met with me since then, despite my multiple attempts to request a meeting with her. So that's why I renewed it in my statement in response to that interview.
I see. I want to move on to your new initiative and much happier bit of a conversation here. Project Guadalupe 2031. This is actually a response to Pope Francis's call to Catholics throughout the Americas to pray and prepare for the 500th anniversary of the appearance of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Tell us about this project. What do you hope to achieve?
I hope to achieve informing people of this call of Pope Francis. He issued this, in 2022, right? It's a 9-year novena in a homily that he gave. The homily itself was not translated into English, but the Vatican News Service did cover the story in English and quoted from the homily in English, but unfortunately it's largely unknown here in North America. I know they know about it in Mexico and other parts of Latin America. We want to promote awareness of this and invite people into this novena to instill greater devotion to Our Lady, because she's the one who always leads us to the encounter with her Son. So we've planned celebrations of the Mass of the Americas that I commissioned 6 years ago to bring the popular music Mexican people sing to honor Our Lady of Guadalupe into the sacred music tradition of the Church. So it's a Mass of unity. We're scheduling celebrations of this Mass of the Americas in different venues across the United States. And ultimately next year on the Memorial of Our Lady of the Rosary, October 7th, we will celebrate it at the Basilica in Mexico City.
So this is really an expansion, a continuation of that Mass for the Americas that you commissioned, and almost a different usage of it.
Yes, well, it's in a way, but with a specific focus on this novena, but in general, a Mass of unity, right? This all was born from 6 years ago. December 8th was on a Saturday, and we had an archdiocesan-wide celebration of Our Lady of Guadalupe on the Solemnity of the Immaculate Conception. So I thought, we all love Our Lady, no matter which side of the border we live on, what language we speak, what culture we come from. So we need to look to Our Lady as the mother who unites us all into one family of God.
You're also working with the Benedict XVI Institute on a rather ambitious goal, 100,000 home enthronements of Our Lady of Guadalupe in the next 3 years. Why is that important, Archbishop? We see these devotions returning, but why is that one important?
This is another part of our effort to raise awareness of the 9-year novena, to enthrone that image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, because that is the pivotal moment of introducing Christ into this hemisphere, and we are all a part of it. Our Lady brought her Son to this continent as the popes would see this as one American continent. She brought him here to us. So she's our connection to her Son. So we enthrone her in our homes as a reminder of what she has done for us in giving birth to her Son. And she continues to give birth to her Son for us to lead us into that saving encounter with him.
Well, your timing is great today, this being the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone, we will leave it there. Thanks for being here. Look, for more information on Project Guadalupe 2031 and how you can participate, visit projectguadalupe.org. Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
You're welcome.
Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris reopened 5 years after the fire that nearly destroyed it. But what of that altar? And Pope Francis added 21 men to the College of Cardinals over the weekend. Riding in for the last time of 2024 with analysis of these stories and more is the Papal Posse. Editor-in-Chief of thecatholicthing.org, Robert Royal, and canon lawyer, priest of the Archdiocese of New York, Father Gerald Murray. Thank you both for being here. This is my little early Christmas gift to myself. I want to begin with this. The Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris reopened in the wake of that 2019 fire. While it is a beautiful restoration and it is eye-popping and a splendor to behold, they couldn't seem to resist a renovation of the altar, which is a dark gray, bowl-shaped slab that looks more like an Addams Family picnic table than the centerpiece of a grand French Gothic cathedral that's been around for centuries. Father, your thoughts on the restoration in general and the ceremony reopening Notre Dame? Am I making too much of this?
No, I like your analysis because it is a beautiful renovation. It's magnificent, and we can thank the French government for the fact that they insisted that it respect the traditions and, you know, as far as using the same materials and the like. The church, the diocese, had the decision about the altar, the tabernacle, and the pulpit. That's where the problem is, because they utterly disregard the history and nature of that cathedral by putting in what I would consider to be unworthy and unsuitable modernistic type conceptions. So those are not good. The opening ceremony reflected the appreciation that the French president and the people have for the heritage, but the altar, it's so shocking. It says, why is that in there? I mean, that really comes from a movie set, you know, of some futuristic type of space movie. It has nothing to do with what the Catholic altar is.
Yeah, no, it looked like something out of, you know, wartime Berlin. And the other thing is, you know, I was searching online, Bob, after I saw it. The Aztecs had prettier altars. At least they, you know, carved figures in it, and they, you know, they worked hard to make their altars glisten and mean something. This is just a black slab. But your thoughts on this and the reopening that was very well attended by heads of state. President-elect Donald Trump was there as well. Did it seem like a secular celebration or a liturgical one to your eyes?
Well, look, you could parse it out in different ways. I mean, one of the things that struck me is that the French government, I mean, this is the secular French government that in many ways is kind of militantly anti-Catholic, was more trustworthy in the restoration of Notre Dame than the church was, because it wasn't only the altar and some other things connected with liturgical celebrations. I mean, it was the sacred vessels that look like they come out of, you know, they're beautiful designs, but priests tell me that they are utterly unusable for a mass. So there was this kind of aesthetic, and if we even look at the vestments that the celebrants wore, which I think, I don't know if we have any pictures of them, but they're comic in the way they use primary colors and big splashes of one thing or another. I have to say, I'm deeply disappointed that the Pope didn't show up for this, because Notre Dame is a central place. I mean, there's actually a medallion in the square outside of Notre Dame that says Point Zero. This is the 0 point of France. It's the center of France. It's the center of Paris. In many ways, it's a center point for Christianity other than Rome. And it would have been wonderful to have the Pope there. That would have it would have been a moment for evangelization.
And speaking of artistic license, the Vatican Nativity scene was unveiled on December 7th in Paul VI Hall, not the big one in the piazza. Pope Francis was in attendance. The manger, however, was draped in a Palestinian headscarf, a keffiyeh with the baby Jesus nestled atop, which caused a few eyebrows to raise. But by Pope Francis's Wednesday audience this week, the keffiyeh was gone. Bob, what do you make of this? Was this a statement in support of Palestine?
I think it was. As I understand it, they gave the contract for that creche to a company near Bethlehem. In other words, in Palestinian, what are now Palestinian territories, but it probably was a Catholic company, and it was good to give them a boost financially as well as morally. But to put that out there without someone overseeing what actually is being displayed is utterly amazing to me, that no one reviewed that. No one in authority realized that there was a problem. You're right, they removed it when the controversy arose. And it just seems to me that if there were any adult at home, they would recognize that you don't step into a political, I mean, this is a political buzzsaw right now, over Christmas. You keep that for another day if you want to make an argument.
Father, again, we're talking about optics here. Was this another blunder on the part of the Vatican? I mean, normally, you correct me if I'm wrong, the infant Jesus is absent in most nativities until Christmas Eve, correct?
Well, it should have been that way, absolutely. The empty creche manger is a symbol of the Advent waiting. So to put the statue there, plus to put this very political, as Bob said, really something that should never have happened. You don't politicize the birth of the Savior.
Yeah. I want to move on to the consistory that was held on December 8th. 21 new cardinals added to the college. This will, as we all know, this is the College of Cardinals that will elect the next pope. Reportage suggests that a number of these cardinals are pro-LGBT progressives. Cardinals Timothy Radcliffe and Tarcisio Curcucci, especially of note. Father Jerry, Cardinal Radcliffe and Pope Francis seemed particularly euphoric when they greeted each other at this consistory. What's the message here with these appointments? What is the Pope trying to convey, do you think?
Well, I don't know exactly what he's trying to convey, but I can tell you what I sense here, which is a continuous approval of churchmen who criticize and do not support the Church's teaching on the immoral nature of homosexual acts. Cardinal Radcliffe is a particularly offensive defender of homosexual activity. He gave a speech a few years ago in which he said that this could even be, in some sense, Eucharistic. He was asked about that by a reporter recently, and he tried to defend his notions. It's basically a sign of the complete chaotic state of the defense of Catholic teaching in the Holy See. You cannot have a cardinal who contradicts the catechism of the Catholic Church being given this position now where he's viewed as having greater authority. The Catholic Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches homosexual activity is intrinsically immoral. And the scriptures are very clear on the nature of this. So to say puzzling is not the right word. This is, I would have to say, causing me great anguish because the faithful are being misled when they see people promote homosexuality promoted in the church.
Bob, your thoughts, and we should also note, Cardinal Radcliffe's titular church, his honorary parish in Rome, is the one formerly held by the late Cardinal Avery Dulles. Yeah,
one of the great American theologians of the 20th century and a personal friend. I mean, I really kind of think of this as a slap in the face to the English-speaking church in a way. Look, if anybody wants to get a sense of what it means that he was named a cardinal, and as Father just said, this controversy came back that I think he either wrote an article or gave a speech back in 2013, and people asked him about it. You should take a look at the argument that he begins to present. He starts with the idea that we shouldn't begin, he says, with whether homosexuality is allowed or not allowed. Well, really? I mean, this is amazing, that a moral question is not going to be dealt with in moral terms. And then he goes on into this gobbledygook about how it's sort of like a charitable participation. And you have to read the double talk and the utter confusion that's there, and then say to yourself, why in God's name would the Holy Father promote a man like this, knowing what his history is? This isn't just welcoming of homosexuals. I mean, we've seen in the secular world what happens when you say, look, we need to be nice to homosexuals, which is fine. But the next thing is, no, we need to have civil unions, and then we need to have gay marriage, and then we need to affirm, and then we need to receive, and we have gender affirming care and trans. This is a slippery slope, and we've entered into it with not only with him, but with several other cardinals, and it does not bode well.
Pope Francis has dedicated, Father Jerry, an LGBT pilgrimage to be part of the Jubilee year 2025 celebrations. A prayer service and a mass will be celebrated for the group at the Gesù, that's the Jesuit Mother Church in Rome. Father, there are conflicting reports about whether this event was ever on the official calendar for the Jubilee. I saw some reports that said it was there and it was taken down. Others said it was never there. Your thoughts on this?
Well, whether it's on a calendar or not, the idea is it's going to happen. The reality, rather, is it's going to happen, and it's going to be basically sponsored by the Jesuits. This is an outrage because essentially this is more pressure group movement to try and approve of homosexual lifestyle and activity. And it's all being done in the context of a holy year of redemption. You know, we're celebrating the redemption every 25 years as a holy year in that, with that intention. And now we're saying that part of salvation is that people who commit sodomy with each other are going to be recognized as a group pilgrimage to come to the St. Peter's Basilica and enter the holy doors. I mean, this is the chaotic nature of what's going on now at the Holy See, that basic Catholic moral teaching is not affirmed. In fact, it's ridiculed by people who say that homosexual activity and lifestyle are something that can be blessed, need to be approved and affirmed. And all of the emotional complaints, well, homosexual people feel unloved. Love is God. God's law is love. If you want to feel loved, love the Lord according to the way he requires. We don't tell God that his law doesn't apply to homosexuals, that sodomy is okay for them. We don't do that. But in effect, this is what's happening when pilgrimages are organized like this.
Yeah, Bob, this LGBT pilgrimage has the support of Pope Francis, Archbishop Fiscella, who is running the Holy Year celebrations, and Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, who's the president of the Italian Bishops' Conference. But now these officials are telling the National Catholic Register they neither support nor oppose this gay pilgrimage during the Holy Year. Your reaction to what we're now hearing from Rome?
Yeah. Well, again, this is really double talk. And if there were really an adult in the room when something like this comes out, of course, even if you wanted to be deceptive and allow this thing to happen, you wouldn't put it on it was actually on the calendar, and then it was removed, as far as I can see. I tried to look at it, actually, and you get 404 error message now when you go into it. And look, this group is called Jonathan's Tent. Now, David and Jonathan is a relationship in the Old Testament. They're friends. They love one another. And gay activists try to make the argument that this actually is a homosexual relationship in the Old Testament. There's no actual textual evidence to point to that, other than the fact that some people want to read it that way. And so from the very start, this group is a group that any real adult Catholic with any theological or biblical knowledge would look at and say, I think we ought to keep our distance from that. But it was put in. Zuppi in Italy is considered by some, at least, to be a potential papabile, that he might become the next pope. I think he has been so outrageously gay-friendly that in a better time he would have been disqualified long ago. But there's lots of that, and it's not just him in Italy and, of course, elsewhere as well.
I want to go back to the consistory for a moment. As has become customary for Pope Francis, he was present at these public masses while another priest celebrated the mass itself. We also saw that the Pope appeared to badly bruise his chin and the side of his face at that consistory mass. The Vatican said he fell and collided with his nightstand. Father, what does this custom of being present at masses but delegating the celebration to someone else, what does that tell us? Should we be concerned about his health?
Well, I'm concerned because the joy of a priest is to celebrate Mass and to celebrate it every day. And the Pope has now taken to presiding at Mass, and that, is something that's kind of mystifying. He's in a wheelchair, so my guess is that he doesn't want to have to be at the altar with a wheelchair. But I would say to him, Holy Father, everybody loves you and is concerned. They don't care if you're in a wheelchair. It doesn't bother us that you're in a wheelchair celebrating Mass. But the Pope has decided otherwise. That's something, what can you say? Regarding falling, I'm sorry he hit his chin. That happens, and that's a sorrowful thing. I'm glad he wasn't injured anymore, and I hope and pray that that'll heal up. But He did carry on at the consistory as normal. I was watching him give his homily, or his talk rather, to the new Cardinals, and he was perfectly fine. So that was not a serious injury.
Yeah. Bob, I want to get to something else before we run out of time. Nancy Pelosi, I talked earlier to Cardinal Cordileone, or Archbishop Cordileone, I'm promoting him. Nancy Pelosi came down pretty hard on Pope Francis regarding the China-Vatican pact that it continues to renew every so often. She questioned why the church would allow the communist Chinese government input into the appointment of bishops. Here's the quote: "We have for decades seen the suffering of Catholics in China," Pelosi said. "I have a completely different view. Why should the Chinese government be having a say in the appointment of bishops?" I've talked to some folks here, and they're, well, we'll have to keep up with the times. I don't get that, end quote. Bob, curious why Pelosi is only concerned with Chinese bishops while she disparages her own. She happens to be correct here. Your reaction?
Yeah, she went on to say, I'm kind of sensitive to martyrs because, as you know, I've written a new book about the 21st century martyrs, which will be part of the Jubilee celebrations next May. That one I think will stay on the calendar. It won't be.
Are we in it, Bob? Are the three of us in it?
You're all white. You're what I call white martyrs. You haven't actually shed blood, although maybe you have a little bit. No, she went on and she said, look, this is breaking faith with our martyrs, that there have been martyrs and actual, bishops that are martyred over there. Now, of course, she cares about this because it has a political angle and she is a political animal. But at the same time, she's said you can be both right and wrong as a human being, as we know personally very well. At the same time, she says, I have my faith in Christ, and so bishops don't enter into it. Yet, she wants to appeal to Rome against her archbishop, the great Archbishop Cordileone in San Francisco. So she's trying to pit one bishop against another. The bishop she likes, she thinks, as opposed to another. She's an incoherent Catholic. I've been thinking that she's sort of a country club Seventh-day Adventist. She isn't even a country club or a cafeteria Catholic. She's so far off the reservation, it's hard to know what she is anymore.
Well, she's definitely a large-scale cafeteria Catholic, Father. Mrs. Pelosi also wrote off the loss of the Catholic vote, Father, in the last presidential election. She said it was due to low voter turnout. That's why the Catholic vote went in the way it did. I'll give you the last word.
Well, Mrs. Pelosi needs to examine her conscience and not criticize her archbishop. When she was in Trinity College in Washington as a student, I'm sure she was taught what is necessary to receive communion properly, which includes believing in the truth of the Catholic faith. Suddenly, when now she's an important politician in America, she's going to appeal to the Pope against her bishop. Please, Archbishop Cordileone is absolutely right. People who reject essential Catholic teaching on the immorality of abortion should not receive communion because they are public sinners, canonically speaking, meaning they are stating things that contradict Catholic teaching. No, I pray for her, and I know the archbishops pray. By the way, she's concerned about she's from China. She refuses to meet with Archbishop Cordileone. He invited her a couple of times before he issued his decree. She won't meet with him. This is typical of politicians. They go in front of camera, say one thing, but if you knew the backstory, you say, no, wait a minute, madam, you have ample opportunity to solve this problem with your bishop. She has chosen not to do that.
Okay, gents, I'm giving you each 10 seconds here before we run out of time. Your thoughts, final thoughts of the year on the biggest story that we've covered so far this year. Bob, first to you.
I think it has to be the blessing of gay couples, or irregular unions, as that document said. And then the blowback, because I think that this is really the global blowback against the document coming out of the Vatican. I don't think I've ever seen in my lifetime such a reaction. Maybe Humani Vitae about contraception was similar, but this to me was something of a Copernican revolution. A lot of people, I think, woke up.
Father, the biggest story of the year, and what should we keep our eye on in the new one?
For me, I'm going to throw out again the Chinese thing. The absolute outrage of renewing that secret agreement with the communist government And the absolute silence about the show trial that Jimmy Lai is undergoing right now. It is sad when the Pope has less concern for an imprisoned Catholic and bishops who are also in prison and priests who are being persecuted. He has very little concern for that. On the other hand, we see other political issues get lots and lots of coverage in the Holy See. I hope that changes. The Chinese Catholics are exemplary in their fidelity to the Holy See, and in return, they're not getting much.
Well, my story would be the ongoing, which is mind-boggling, the ongoing sex abuse cover-up where you have malicious, outed malefactors who are not only protected, but brought back into ministry from the very highest levels of the Catholic Church. I'm thinking of Rupnik. I'm thinking of that priest down in Argentina who was miraculously put back into ministry until somebody at the Doctrine of Faith flagged it and said, wait a minute, we can't do this. That is an ongoing scandal that I hope will be cleared up in the year ahead. Gentlemen, we will leave it there for now. A blessed Advent. Merry Christmas to both of you. We will reconvene in 2025. Robert Royal, Father Gerald Murray, thank you both for being here. As we mentioned, Pope Francis added 21 new red hats to the College of Cardinals. There are now 253 members of that college, with 140 eligible to vote in the next conclave. But how well do we know these men? And how well do these men know each other? Here to tell us about the new project he's working on to facilitate this getting-to-know-you process is senior correspondent at the National Catholic Register, Edward Pentin. Ed, tell me about this new project you're collaborating on. It's called the College of Cardinals Report, and it's a web-based expansion of your book, The Next Pope. Why update it now?
Yes, exactly, Raymond. Well, this whole project really came to fruition, the book first of all, but now this, because we got so many requests from cardinals and others saying that they wanted this kind of resource so that they could know who the cardinals are and where they stand on particular issues, and to have a sort of website, an interactive website to do that. And this is the first ever project really that has a sort of interactive element where you can filter cardinals according to whatever who appointed them and what nation and so forth. We have a map, an interactive map where you can have a statistical breakdown of geographically where they are. But perhaps probably the most and also we have a table of contents where you can, for the 40 in-depth cardinals that 40 profiles that we covered in depth, that you can actually see through this table where they stand on particular issues. And we have, as I say, 40 in-depth profiles. Yeah.
As I mentioned in the intro, Ed, the college keeps growing, and the men who will elect the next pope know very little about each other. How does the College of Cardinals report seek to alleviate that problem?
Yes, well, as I say, the fact that we have 40 in-depth profiles, Raymond, so we have a lot of detail on these 40 cardinals, many of whom are papabili, as we say. They're eligible to be pope. And we have summary profiles of all the other ones. But what's really a novelty about this site, we think, is that it's interactive in many different ways. Not only can you sort of find filter different cardinals according to their location and so forth, and use a map and get a geographical breakdown, statistical breakdown of the cardinals, but we're also inviting readers to submit any amendments or additions so that we can, keep the content live, as it were, and make it truly interactive, so that the faithful and cardinals themselves can chip in and improve the profile, make it more a fuller profile, if you like. So, and they'll all be vetted, and we'll keep it as accurate as we can, and we're hopefully very accurate.
So this is kind of like your own little Wikipedia breakdown of these cardinals. I'm worried about community notes starting to be fired at you, Ed, but I'm glad you're editing this and this isn't, subject to outside manipulation. You're working with independent journalist Diane Montagna, along with the Sophia Institute Press. Tell us about the technical aspects of the site. How will this information be organized? Give us a sense. I know you've got cross-references like crazy.
Yes, exactly, and everything's a lot of it's hyperlinked. But we have this each category is you can filter the cardinals according to their age, their nationality, who made them cardinal, and so forth. And we have, as I say, this table of 10 different core issues that are very important today, certainly very topical today. And you can see where each cardinal stands on those issues with the color-coded table. And we hope to obviously increase that as time goes on. We have, I think, 22 or more perhaps who are on that table. No, we have 40. Sorry, 40 we have there. But we hope to increase it to as many of the cardinal electors at least as we can, and that's up to 140 now.
Ed, if you were handicapping the top cardinals to watch, they would be whom? Give me your top three.
Yes, I mean, I never like to make these predictions because, as we know, it's a real lottery. But I think it's interesting to see who the emerging ones are, and certainly we have Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem. He's certainly up and coming. He's only 58 now, so he's probably too young to be seriously considered, but he is certainly somebody who's coming up through the ranks. There's also Cardinal Jean-Marc Aveline of Marseille, who's known as the Pope's favorite, and he's sort of emerging as also another leading candidate. I think he's in his mid-60s. So probably about the right age, if you like. And then we have Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo of Kinshasa, who's also rising up through the ranks as a sort of new African cardinal hopeful, as Cardinal Sarah was for many years, but some think that he's getting a little too old now to be seriously considered Pope. But Cardinal Ambongo is seen as somebody who's certainly emerging as a strong contender.
And Cardinal Erdo, I noticed you had on your homepage of the site.
Yes,
who's, been talked about for a long time.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, you've got these candidates who've been talked about for some years now. Cardinal Erdo is one of them. Yes, and of course Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Secretary of State at the Vatican. He's another one. And there are quite a few different candidates out there who've been in the rank, who've been in the making of papably, being seen as papably for some time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Ed, I like that it's a quick digest, and you can read these sort of amended bios of these men. That also takes into consideration their view on certain theological controversies, their liturgical tastes. It's kind of a one-stop shop and a very convenient tool, certainly for these cardinals, but also for the general public, for the general Catholic looking in on the process. Ed, we'll leave it there. You can find the College of Cardinals report at collegeofcardinalsreport.com. Thank you, Ed. Middle East tensions continue to rise, and in Europe, President Biden shifts his Ukraine policy in the waning days of his administration. For perspective, we go to Newsmax foreign policy analyst, co-host of the War and Freedom podcast, Dr. Walid Phares. Walid, what brought on this sudden collapse of the Bashar al-Assad regime, the former Syrian president? What happened there?
Well, very quickly for your audience, we have been investigating this. I saw it happening over the hours, how the Bashar units would be trying to respond to the advancing forces, which I call jihadists anyway, and then orders will come from the command of that army, the Syrian Arab army, to withdraw. So something was happening inside his own army, something that has to do with infiltration by the jihadists in his own structure. No response from Russia, little response by Iran, and that basically caused the complete collapse of the regime of Bashar al-Assad. But it doesn't stop here. The question is, who is going to replace him? And I have a lot of things to share.
Yeah. Well, that's my big question. Let's start with who these rebel groups are that toppled Assad. Who are they? Who do they represent? Will there be a new regime, that's better for the Syrian people and stability in the region?
For those who suffered from the Bashar al-Assad and his father Hafez al-Assad regime for 4 decades, I was one of them in Lebanon at the time. I mean, I saw the bombs thrown onto the Christian areas of Beirut. We are happy. Everybody is happy on this side of the Atlantic and there. But they don't know, people who are now celebrating this don't know that they could be repeating what East European people, when they have done and celebrated, when in 1945, they were so happy with the withdrawal of the Nazis, and then they were even cheering the tanks of the Soviet army, only to realize that for another 6 decades, they will be under the yoke of the Soviet occupation. So what's happening now is something very similar. The forces, the Tahrir al-Sham organization, which claimed to be the main power, was Nusra, was Al-Qaeda. So what we expect now is to see a jihadi regime trying to establish itself with all the camouflage that you want, Raymond.
Families and rescue teams have rushed in to that notorious Damascus prison where detainees are still feared to be held underground. Many Syrians disappeared, as you referenced a moment ago, under Bashar al-Assad's rule. They emerged, they were reunited with loved ones. What are you hearing about their condition and the release from captivity? And again, are we being distracted from the real story, which is a jihadi regime being constituted in the background of all these happy reuniting of families and former prisoners?
You got it 100% right, Raymond. Basically, what's happening is a delayed feeling of what is going on geostrategically. The Syrian population, the majority of the Syrian population, has been so much brutalized by the Assad regime, as I said a little bit earlier. They would need months and months to, first of all, recover all those who have been abused in prisons and tortured in prison. Books could be written about the violence against the civilians. It would be like another form of Khmer Rouge or Stalinism happening in Syria. At the same time, the force that is coming to take over are very smart. They are backed by all the jihadists. Their leader is very tactician. He knows exactly what to do. Yeah, you have to celebrate the fall of Assad. You have to recover your loved ones from these horrible prisons, and they are very horrible, but we are taking over at the same time. That's the drama that Syria is. And this has been done, by the way, in the interim between two administrations in the United States. We cannot do anything at this point in time, or very little thing, to at the same time making sure that the jihadists are not going to be taken over.
Yeah, Walid, I will add this. The United States did order the Biden administration more than 75 strikes on ISIS camps to stop those terrorist groups from taking advantage of the upheaval. My question is that effective? Is that enough? Or is that just to say, look, we tried, but there was nothing we could do?
I tell you what I know. If the president-elect, the current administration can't do much anymore, plus they are sending billions of dollars to the Islamic regime in Iran. It's like crazy what's happening. The president-elect, Donald Trump, from his position, from Mar-a-Lago, should issue a statement saying that the United States will not accept the seizing of Syria by jihadists, by Al-Qaeda, graduates, if you want, and we want all minorities to be protected. That will bring attention from the world to what's happening now in Syria. Because if we don't do anything, we're going to go for another long war that the president-elect doesn't want to have anyway.
Wow. The U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Monday that the toppling of Bashar al-Assad's regime presents a, quote, historic opportunity, but also carries considerable risks. Boy, is that an understatement. But what are the risks here?
The risks are that we're going to have a jihadi regime, much more powerful than Afghanistan, and all the weapons we sent with them to Afghanistan. It's going to be much more powerful than any single jihadi organization in the world, all sitting in one place on the Mediterranean, getting money later and soon enough from the gas in the Mediterranean, invading parts of Lebanon. And at the end of the day, two things very dangerous could happen. And we could discuss it in the weeks and months to come. One, they're going to try to link up with the borders in Lebanon. So they are on Israel's border in Syria. But guess where is the most dangerous thing? They may overwhelm Jordan. That's the real fear.
Wow. Look, there's a valid concern also about the safety of Christians in Syria. The Archbishop of Homs, Jacques Murad, in Syria said this week, this is the end of the great history of Christians in Aleppo, end quote. Is the Archbishop right? And what is the status at the moment in the region, Walid?
No, totally. You're right. And he's right, actually. The Christians will be a target, but not immediately. I don't know. Somebody was making a statement, they have not yet persecuted the Christians. They're not stupid, these jihadists. They're not going to start in the midst of them installing their regime, going and persecuting Christians, but they are persecuting another minority. They are ethnic cleansing. That's what I've learned this morning. The Alawites. The Alawites are the community of Assad, but they don't like Assad. So that would lead to what? An ethnic cleansing of the Alawites from the northern western area of Syria. And guess what they will get? They will get the coast 175 miles off coast. The Russians are leaving. Jihadists will have bases on the Mediterranean. That is an earthquake, in my view.
Wow, I agree. That would be terrifically horrible. President-elect Donald Trump met with the president of the Kurdish regional government in Paris last week. Walid, what does collaboration with that Kurdish regional government mean for the region and for the U.S.? Do you think it'll have any impact?
First of all, Donald Trump, since the days of when I was advisor, before he was elected in 2016, he knew that the Kurds are very important. All Kurds, not just one community of Kurds. And he said, we need to arm them. We need to have them as a defense with us. We need to have them as a small Israel deep inside the Middle East. And they are progressing. The Kurds in Erbil, the capital of the North Iraq government at this point in time, have nothing to do with those jihadists around them. So we need to have them in our alliance. And I think Israel is reaching out as well. The president of Kurdistan, KRG, and the prime minister as well have made proposals to the U.S., including to the incoming administration, that there will be very loyal allies and they are needed in the fight against this huge wave of jihadism, should it be from Salafi jihadism, Al-Qaeda, etc., or still the remnant of these Shia fundamentalist Khomeini militias that are still in Iraq and obviously inside Iran.
Walid, we will leave it there. Iran, an imperialist republic, and U.S. policy is available at bookstores everywhere. Dr. Walid Phares, thank you for being here. And Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Christmas is right around the corner, and on Saturday, December 14th, the new docudrama about the birth of Jesus will have a special release in movie theaters across the country and around the globe. On Reach the World Day, Why the Nativity hits theaters with the transformative and miraculous story of the birth of our Lord. And you can see it for free. Joining me to tell us about this special film is the founder of Turning Point Ministries and executive producer of Why the Nativity, Dr. David Jeremiah. Dr. Jeremiah, thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about this film and what inspired you to make it at this point in time, at this turning point, if you will.
Well, I was asked to write a book about some of the questions people have about the Nativity, given a very short time leash to do it, and I pulled all the sermons I'd preached on Christmas for 40 years and realized that I had this treasure trove of information. And the book came out from Tyndall House, 25 questions that you always wanted to ask about Christmas, and that was the basis for the film.
Dr. Jeremiah, the movie's been available to stream for a bit. Why is a theatrical release important to you?
Because it is a film that is worthy of such a release. The drama and the production is world class. I can say that even though it's something we had something to do with. We literally built Bethlehem on a field about 14 miles away from our ministry headquarters. We recreated the city of Bethlehem, and when you watch this film, you actually feel like you're in Jerusalem, in Bethlehem, in Nazareth, and watching it happen.
And Doctor, why did you want to give tickets away for free? People can come and see the film on the 14th of December at no charge.
Well, first of all, this film is released internationally, and in many places, if they had to pay for it, they couldn't come. And making this available at our cost, not their cost, is our way of saying, you know, Merry Christmas, and this is a present that is worthy, and I think it's wonderfully received.
I want to give folks a little taste of what they'll be seeing. Here's a look at Why the Nativity from Dr. David Jeremiah and Turning Point Ministries. Watch.
Just when people needed hope, God would send a baby, a king, to offer a foretaste of a better future. But why? Why was a virgin chosen to be the mother of Jesus? Why would an earthly man be chosen to raise a baby sent from heaven? Why choose the lowliest of men to be the first to see the newborn king? Why did kings come from the east to worship the King of the Jews? Why Bethlehem? And perhaps the most important question, why should we care? And what should the baby in Bethlehem mean to me?
I'm David Jeremiah. Won't you journey back with me to a faraway place and to a time that might otherwise be forgotten?
This Christmas, travel back in time as we answer the mystery, the meaning, and the question, why the Nativity?
Dr. Jeremiah, what is so special and moving about the story of the Nativity in particular? I mean, Easter is, of course, the high holy day on the Christian calendar, but why do you think Christmas and the Nativity continues to fascinate even non-believers?
Well, you know, the story of Christmas is really the story of the beginning of redemption, because Christ, among all men, came to this earth for one purpose, and that is in order that he might die. And he went to the cross, and of course, he bore the penalty for our sin and was resurrected on the third day. But Christmas is the celebration of God becoming a man, and it is an amazing celebration, very wonderfully portrayed in this movie.
Dr. Jeremiah, your Reach the World Day is, in addition to hitting 20 major U.S. cities, Why the Nativity will also play on 6 continents in 30 different countries in 11 languages. What is your ultimate goal here with this film? What are you hoping people will take from it?
We want to create a film that will have a long shelf life and will be in languages of the world, so that there's no place in the whole world where you can view movies that you can't view Why the Nativity. We're actually adding 5 more languages this coming year. So next year we'll have 16 languages. And we're in 60 major cities across the world with this presentation.
And what are you hearing from viewers so far? I know people have seen it. I went to a screening at the Bible Museum in D.C. Give me a sense of what people are saying in reaction, and talk to me about the communal experience of coming together in a theater as opposed to watching it at home.
Well, first of all, the things that we hear about it, I think more than anything else, is how impressed everybody is with the quality of it. Unfortunately, Christendom doesn't have a great reputation for producing high-quality movies until recently, especially. Yeah. But this is really amazing. The sets, the costumes, everything that's in this movie is number one, and people come away just overwhelmed with the story. I've watched this movie many times, but there are parts of the movie I can't get through without tears, because it just brings you to the emotion of the story, and particularly the time between the announcement and the birth and all the anguish that both Mary and Joseph went through as they tried to process this story. It's captured so wonderfully in this movie, and it's a part of the story that is often not told.
Well, David, we will leave it there. Why the Nativity, the new docudrama by Dr. David Jeremiah and Turning Point Productions, is in theater for a special free engagement on Saturday, December 14th. For tickets and showtimes, you can go to reachtheworldday.org. Thank you so much, Dr. Jeremiah. And Merry Christmas.
Thank you for having me. Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. With Advent upon us, my Christmas album, Christmas Merry and Bright, is available wherever music is sold and at the EWTN catalog. It's a wonderful way to bring cheer and rhythmic hope to your Christmas celebrations. And oh, the band is great. And my books, The Spider Who Saved Christmas and The Wise Men Who Found Christmas, are also available at the EWTN catalog or wherever you get your books. They're wonderful stories, and I hope you read them aloud to the whole family. So many people send me notes that they read them on Christmas Eve or they read them together during the holidays. Please do that. That's the most important thing and the reason I wrote them. Well, that is all the time we have for now, but be sure to join us next week. The show continues on Facebook and Twitter. Like me on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter. The links are at RaymondArroyo.com. Be sure to tune in next week. Until then, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, thank you for watching. I'm Raymond Arroyo. Bye now.